Welcome to The Fight with Teddy Atlas, presented by Dynamic Striking. I'm Ken Rideout, joined as always by the legend Teddy Atlas, the voice of all combat sports. How you doing, Teddy?
Good. Doing good. Hope everybody out there is good. And let's jump right into fights. First thing I say about the fight world is that it didn't light on fire this weekend. But we're here to cover whatever was there, right? I mean, I think that's fair. It wasn't exactly barn burners across the spectrum of boxing, but we had some decent fights. We covered them all, and I just want to put out, I don't know if it would be called a disclaimer or just being transparent, as I always try to be, we try to be, where we're going to cover just the main event in the UFC. And there were other fights on there. If you're mad at anyone, don't get mad at him. Get mad at me, because I choose not to cover the others because there's too many. And where do you make a choice? Where do you make a decision that you stop here, you start there? So I decided, since we're covering boxing, 3 boxing fights basically, to cover one UFC. I wanted to have a UFC presence, and so what do I choose? I choose the main event. Now, again, I know people will say, well, what about that one? What about the third fight, the fourth fight, the first fight, the preliminary fight? No, I'm telling you why. Because we can't cover them all. I mean, if it was something that was obviously monumental, yeah, we'd find a way to get it in. But otherwise, I made a choice to just cover the main event. And again, the main event... with Rose, I think that, first of all, I know it wasn't a barn burner, but she's a fighter that has been a 2-division champ. She's trying to move up and win a title at another division. I think that she deserved to be covered, being that, again, she was in the main event slot. So anyway, let's get started with a guy that's supposed to be, is this fair, Ken, to kind of, for the drum roll, that Boots Ennis is supposed to be, or was supposed to be, the next superstar, or the guy that they're looking to pass the baton to, definitely in the welterweight class, especially since Crawford left, but as one of the great talents out there, as the next star. But to be a star, you need more than just talent. You need those X factors, and you need it to get out there to the masses. And it hasn't gotten out there to the masses yet. And Ennis was coming back after a year layoff, and people were watching just to see what he was going to do. I don't think that the result was ever something was greatly in question, but how was he going to look, And could he outdo what Crawford did? Crawford, of course, fought the same opponent, David Avanesyan, and stopped him in 6. So we got a peek. We got a chance to get those questions answered.
Yeah, and Ennis runs the record to 32-0 with 29 knockouts, which is impressive on the surface. Obviously, it depends who he's fighting, but I think he's in that tough spot right now, Ennis, where I don't think he can get a lot of the top guys to fight him. The risk is huge, and there's not a big reward because he doesn't have that big name. But he did what he had to do against David Avanesyan, and he was not afraid to take some shots there to get to Avanesyan. And you hit the nail right on the head. You had the under, you had by knockout. He stopped him in between the 5th and 6th rounds, and at times looked sharp doing it. But like I said, he got hit with some shots, and I was curious to know what you thought of the performance versus what Terence Crawford was able to do against Avanesyan. And obviously styles make fights. It's hard to analyze one guy versus a common opponent. The 2 guys are fighting much different styles at times. How'd you like the performance, and what'd you think of Avanesyan in terms of the performance difference from Crawford to how he looked against Boots?
Well, first of all, Crawford, if I off the top of my head, if I said, what's the difference? Crawford does it and did it with a scalpel. I mean, just a scalpel. He wasn't. When he threw, he took his time. It took him a few rounds to measure the guy, to get the sense of the guy, to set the guy up, and nothing was wasted. And it was just clean. It was with a scalpel. It was beautiful from the southpaw position, left uppercut, short right hook, really fast. Pop, 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 like good music. No breaking, but like good jazz. Just really smooth. And if he did it with a scalpel, then I would say that Ennis did it, and not in a butcher way, but he used more of a cleaver. And a cleaver can be used with talent. It can be used, with precision, but it's not as fine as a scalpel. A scalpel is going to make just slight cuts, and it's going to be very concise, very precise, and that was what Crawford was. There wasn't a lot of punches to get to that point. It was setting them up with the jab, controlling range, and then finding the opening for an uppercut. Once he found it in the 6th round, left uppercut, right. Like I said, the head came up just a quarter of an inch, and the right hook was right there on time. You don't see that kind of talent, that kind of precision, that kind of speed, that kind of timing every day. And Crawford displayed that. Look, I think Ennis is great. I think he's great technically. I think he's great talent-wise. But again, that was the difference. Another analogy could be like a sniper versus a machine gun, where you got a guy who's looking for one shot, and he's got nothing, there's no room for a mistake. And it's one shot, bang, it's over. That was Crawford. In this fight, how did Ennis do it? He was more like a machine gun. He was spraying punches around to set up openings. And again, not in any kind of, you want one more analogy just hit me? You had Michelangelo in painting versus a graffiti artist. And again, not in a negative way. Graffiti could be beautiful, but it's different. It's different. It's more spread out, and it's not, the strokes are not as fine as Michelangelo, or whoever you want to use as the obvious example that I'm trying to make. And that was the difference. Ennis showed me, first of all, he's huge. He's he's going to move up to junior middleweight for 2 reasons. One, I think he would have to physically, and 2, he can, because he's got the skeleton. He won't lose anything. And 3, who's he going to fight? Any of the money, the big fights, they're not in welterweight anymore. So I don't know if it's his last fight at welterweight. It might be. I know they're already talking about moving up to junior middleweight and fighting Crawford. If Crawford gets past his next fight in August, where he's fighting for the junior middleweight title, if he wins that, then he'll probably try to make that. And I know that Turki Al-Sheikh, His Excellency from Saudi Arabia, who's been changing boxing and the face of boxing and the fights that have been made since he's been around, he's got interest in making that fight. If he has interest in making that fight, my money would be with my bookie that the fight will get made then, because the money will be put there. But without getting ahead of ourselves, Ken, Ennis, he's got the physical tools. You either have them or you don't. He's got the physical tools. He can punch. He's got hand speed. And he's got the technique. He can fight inside. He can fight outside. He's responsible defensively. Yeah, he showed defensive flaws. I'm going to make an excuse for him. And I don't make excuses for no one. And it's really not an excuse. I'm just going to try to put a reason to it. I think that he went in there a little overconfident. No excuse. I mean, it's up to you to, take care of your job and to handle what you got to handle and to be ready mentally. There's no excuse. Oh, I overlooked the guy. I just think we're human. Fighters are human. I think he probably overlooked him a little bit. I think he'd probably be sharper defensively if he was in there with someone else that he probably regarded as more of a threat, if that's fair to say. And I'm taking nothing away from David Avanesyan because he's a brave guy. He's a tough guy. He's a willing guy, but he's a guy right in front of you. He puts the earmuffs on. He's right in front of you. There's a reason why I was so confident about the under. There was a reason why I was so confident about Ennis winning by knockout, that I touted it that way. I did feel that the greatest sort of motivation in this fight for Ennis was, if he wants to get out there more, which he does, because you walk down the street, nobody knows Ennis. They know Crawford a little bit, but Ennis, no. As good as he is, other than the boxing insiders. So the best way to start to get out there is, well, outdo the guy who's ahead of you. Outdo the guy that you want to fight. Outdo the guy that does get all the attention and did get all the attention in that weight class, Crawford. And he did. He outdid him. And I thought he would be inspired and motivated to do it. And I thought his camp would be. And I feel they were. And they got the job done. Again, real good talent. Technically solid. Yeah, he got hit. He got hit a lot of clean shots by Avanesyan. 2 reasons. Maybe he overlooked him a little bit. Wasn't mentally in gear the way he would be if he was in there with more, in his mind, of a threat. And also because he's fighting in a phone booth. He said, look, I could just go in the phone booth with this. He could have fought him on the outside too, like Crawford did, tried to pick him apart a little bit more, take that approach, the scalpel approach a little bit more, but he didn't. He didn't, and that speaks to his mindset, that what he thought he could do, what he wanted to do. So he went in there, he went in the phone booth, he got inside, you're in the phone booth, more of a chance of getting hit in the phone booth. More of a chance of that happening. And it happened. He got hit some clean shots, no doubt about it. I don't think you can take away from that fight saying, oh, he's got no chance against Crawford. He gets hit too. It won't be the same approach, and it won't be the same guy in that way. So at the end of the day, he's a good body puncher. He puts his punches together well. He knows what he's doing inside, outside, in all aspects of combat. In all dimensions of the ring, he can handle himself. He had a very game guy. I give credit again to David Avanesyan. It's a good thing he didn't punch harder. I know Ennis's chin was flawless, but if Avanesyan is a bigger puncher, who knows? Nobody can take clean shots against a big puncher too much, obviously. But at the end of the day, 1 year off, he didn't show any decline other than the things I just touched on. I gave you a reason why I think those things were there, why those things were happening. And I noticed the commentator, I get a kick out of. I noticed the guy that was doing this, one of the commentators said, before they started the fight, said, okay, we've set up the show. We set the table. Now it's time to eat. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? It sounds kind of familiar. I don't know.
You have to take it as a compliment.
I don't know. But anyway, at the end of the day, Ennis moves forward. I believe you're gonna see him move up and try to get the Crawford fight. I mean, that would make sense for trying to search for greatness, and of course, money.
It would make sense for Ennis. I can't see Crawford taking that fight.
The only way he takes that fight, Ken, he wins the junior middleweight title, right? And he's in with a solid guy.
Yeah.
But to win that title, but if he wins that title in August, and Turkey Al-Sheikh comes up with extraordinary money, yeah, all of a sudden you see a reason to take that fight. And again, at that weight class.
Yep. All right, let's talk Devin Farmer. Raymond Muratalla beats Devin Farmer, 10-round decision, pretty one-sided.
I want to mention one other thing. I just saw my note.
Go ahead.
When I always talk about technique being so important, no matter what your talent is, you have to have the technique to properly, bring that talent to where you want to take it. And it was a technical thing. I think it was a matter of time. I think that at the end of the day, that Ennis was going to stop Avanesyan anyway, But when he did drop him in the 5th round, when he did do that, it was because of a technical flaw. And I just want to point it out for the fans and also for the young fighters out there that I know listen to this show, that what happened was he had just done something good and it became bad real fast, where Avanesyan had just finished landing a clean right hand, but he didn't move after his punch. He stood there. You hear me often say, and you've heard it with other people, but I've often said, you can't pose after your punch. You don't take a picture. You don't wait for the receipt. Old time sayings that I got from Cuss. And, in the gym all the time. So he throws a right hand. He lands it. He catches Ennis against the ropes or near the ropes, standing straight up. And then he just lays there for a split second. Ennis does what a competitive fighter is supposed to do. He comes right back with his own straight left hand from the southpaw, and it's over. Don't pose after your punch.
I always say to my kids, when the kids are having disputes, I always say, hey, if you have to punch someone, guess what they're going to do after you punch them? Punch you back. I know that, okay, that's a common saying maybe in boxing, but haven't heard you say that so many times? Even when I'm punching the bag myself, it's like burned into my memory. Ever since I seen when we were with Vosdick sparring with Kilic, Cem Kilic, when he wasn't moving his head, it's like burned into my memory. I can't throw a punch, even clowning on the heavy bag by myself, without moving my head as soon as I throw the punch. So I think that's a good point for young fighters that are listening to this. After you throw the punch, move your head. Don't just stand there. And that was a perfect example of what happens when you don't do that. Well, anyway, like I said, Raymond Muratalla runs his record to 21-0 with 16 knockouts. He beats the veteran Tevin, 10-round decision, fairly one-sided. How'd you like the performance? I thought Muratalla looked really athletic and skilled at times in there.
Yeah, I thought it was, it was two fights in one. I don't think it was one-sided. I thought at the end, Muratalla, got what he wanted. He got Farmer to slow down and to wear down because of the pressure he put on, and the pressure that mentally and physically that he put on that finally wore Farmer down towards the end of the fight. And the pressure of, when I say the physical pressure, he imposed his size and his will into that fight, where he's the bigger guy. And you can see that. And I thought that it was very competitive. I thought that Farmer had a lead early on. But Farmer he's older now. He's an older guy, Farmer. He's been around. I like him a lot. He's a good defensive fighter. The old timers would call him a cutie. He's a slickster. He counterpunches real well. He understood the proper game plan he needed at this point in his life. And with this guy, where if he was going to have a chance to win, he was going to have to come in with a disciplined fight plan, which he usually does. Fight on the outside, pot shot Muratalla, keep him off balance with movement, with your legs, beat him to the mark, get out of town, get off first, get out of dodge, and then when he comes after you, counter punch again. And then on the inside, don't engage him. He's a bigger guy, he's a stronger guy. For the most part, tie him up. I have no problem taking a point away from a guy if the guy's excessively holding to the point where he's not trying to win anymore, he's just holding, it's bogging down the action of the fight, I don't have a problem. You give him a few warnings. I don't really have a problem if it starts to slide into that kind of an ugly fight. But in this case, there was a point taken away later in the fight from Farmer, and it was for excessive holding. And to me, it was something that was on a borderline of whether or not you should take a point away, because it was part of his strategy. He's trying to he's trying to show the sweet science. He's trying to outbox a guy who's younger, an undefeated fighter, who's more spritey, younger, bigger. And part of that strategy was to box on the outside, as I said, and then don't let him do what he wants on the inside when you have to tie him up. And he was doing that. He was doing that as part of the sweet science. And he got a point deducted for doing that. And at the end of the day, again, it's got to be the discretion of the referee. I don't know that the discretion was the right discretion at that point, or if it ever is, in the kind of way I'm describing right now. If it's not excessive to the point where it's really bogging the fight down and almost making it difficult to watch. Maybe some people will disagree with me. I thought it was on the borderline of that. I thought it was worth mentioning. Anyway, at the end of the day, Farmer had the first part of the fight, and then Muratalla, the pressure, the size, he got inside. He was able to get it to the geography he needed. I always talk about real estate and geography in this fight game, where it's so important that the person that controls the geography, the real estate, whichever way you want to say it, that best serves them for the talents they have, for the skill sets they have. If they're a quick guy, if they're a Muhammad Ali type guy on the outside, you want to own. That's your real estate, outdoors, outside. If you're Joe Frazier, you're shorter arm guy, shorter guy, whatever, and your temperament is to be aggressive and to go to the body and to impose physicality into the fight. You want to go and buy land on the inside. You want to own that geography. And Farmer he understood. And again, I give him credit for that. I give credit to his team that was their best shot at this point in the career, where he's no longer a spring chicken. He's shop worn a little bit. I think that's fair to say. Muratalla got it done late in the fight. He hurt him. With I forget what round it was, but in one of the later rounds, he hurt him with a right hand. He set it up nice. He shoe shined a little bit downstairs, and then he went upstairs and caught him with a big right hand that really, I think, probably helped secure the fight for him. You definitely saw the pressure around the 7th round where it started to wear down the smaller Farmer. I thought that Muratalla could have went to the body a little bit more. There's no better way to wear down a smaller guy than to go to the smaller man's body. That usually works pretty well. Again, the 8th round was where I made the point that a point was taken away, which I thought was a big point at that time in my mind. So that's about it. 9th round, Farmer slowed down. He got caught. I think it was. I'm trying to see what round it was when he got caught the right hand. Big right hand he caught him with in the 10th round. That I think pretty much solidified, I guess, the fight for him. Farmer was really starting to show some exhaustion. Anyway, Tevin Farmer, final notes I made just for our fans out there. He had been inactive for 3.5 years, 4 fights ago, if you go back 4 fights. So obviously 33 years old, at a different, at a later, obviously twilight place in his career, I believe. 33, 6-1, only 8 knockouts. So even more to the point of why Farmer needed to fight that disciplined fight on the outside. He doesn't carry that kind of power, and he was given up 6 years in age to the 27-year-old undefeated Muratalla. I'm not knocking Muratalla. I'll put a bow on it this way for the fans that if they wanted to get a bow put on it, if they're following him. I wasn't greatly impressed. Now, he was in there with a difficult style, especially early on. Slickster. Farmer is a good, solid boxer. But I wasn't overly... I'm not down on him. I want to see more of him. And I'm curious to see more of him, to see what he looks in his next fight. Muratalla.
Yeah. Well, before we get over to the UFC, let me give a quick shout out to our friends at Athletic Greens. If you're looking for one supplement to make a difference in your life, consider Athletic Greens. It's the all-in-one green drink. It's got all the daily vitamins, minerals, nutrients, probiotics and prebiotics that you need. Even the healthiest of diets can use an insurance policy to make sure you're getting all the micronutrients required for a healthy body. Athletic Greens made from 75 whole food source ingredients. It's the all-in-one green drink. You put a scoop of it in the morning with 8 to 10 ounces of water. Easy as can be. Like I said, it's the one supplement that if I could only take one thing, this is what I would take. Go to athleticgreens.com/Atlas to get 10 of these free travel packs with your first purchase. The travel packs are invaluable, especially if you're traveling for work or you're training. You want to make sure you're getting all your vitamins in when you're traveling. athleticgreens.com/Atlas. All right, let's get over to the UFC. Before we get into the main event, Teddy, in the one of the undercards, Drew Dober, just worth noting, he was in with Silva, the Brazilian, and I think he caught, I don't know if he caught an elbow or a punch, but he
elbow.
I
believe it was an elbow. Elbow.
I think you're right. He got his eyebrow busted open, and it was just worth noting because the cut was, it was as bad as an eyebrow cut is. It looked like the entire length of his eyebrow. And I just pointed out because, of course, the fighter wanted to continue going like everyone in the UFC. And, if you're in there tough and the tide's going against you, we've seen a lot of guys say, I can't see, which is basically code for get me out of here. And Drew Dober didn't want to have it, but the cut was vicious. And fight got waved off. I know you had a chance to look at the cut. How'd you like that one?
I didn't like it. So often.
That was a bad cut.
Yeah, it was terrible. And look, you get terrible cuts in my business and in the boxing business, obviously, too. But sometimes you can get even more devastating type cuts. And that was a devastating cut because of the allowance of elbows. Obviously, you could get hit an accidental elbow. It could be accidentally on purpose. Who knows in boxing? But it's not like they are allowed to go out there and, purposely hit you with an elbow. When you're allowed to hit someone with an elbow, obviously you have a better chance of creating a deeper cut, a very serious cut. Accidental headbutts in boxing, that causes cuts. We get it. But I've seen some of the worst ones, I guess, probably in MMA because of the nature of the sport, being allowed to use your elbow with the force that they use the elbow.
This cut reminds me a little bit of the Tyson Fury cut against Otto Wallen.
Yeah, that was a bad one. That's a good example. And I go back to Klitschko against Lennox Lewis. That was a bad cut. That was a real bad cut.
Was Badu, Jack, and Marcus
that was the
Brown?
Forehead, but that was bad. Yeah.
Oh my God! That cut. Oh God, that was crazy.
But to just finish, to put a suture on this, not a bow, but a suture on this one, I would just say, you opened the door for me to close the door, would be that, yeah, these guys are so tough, just like boxing guys, the real tough ones that are. There's degrees to toughness. And these guys, just like the top tough boxing guys, they just live by a code. And it's what I always talk about, where it's not enough just to know how to fight like a champion. You have to know how to behave like one. These guys, they know how to behave like one. They show it. The ones that show it. They as you said, he's still looking and sincere. Not just afterwards when it stopped. Not like the guys that you saw in the schoolyard that I remember, where they wait until somebody gets in between them, and then they say, "Let me at him. Let me at him. Let me at him. Come on. I want to get to him." And then if you let them go, they're still saying, "Let me get at." They forget you let go. And then they're not moving forward. The frauds out there, but it's easier to behave. It's easier to act like a tough guy. It's harder to behave like one and to live like one and to actually perform like one when the moment comes, when that being tough is tested. And these guys come up aces, the real ones, when they are tested. They genuinely are live by that code, and they know how to behave. They know how to behave like champions. So, yeah, it's a shame you see that kind of cut, and it's a shame you see a kid like that, the fight stopped on him. But it is part of the business. It does happen. And we'll move on to take us to the top UFC fight that night, which was, I'm not saying it was the top fight as far as action, but it was definitely the main event with former two-time featherweight. Oh, I think I made a mistake. I said she was a two-division champ. Rose Namajunas was a two-time featherweight champion, and I believe she's moving up in weight now, trying to hope to win a title.
Let's move on to Rose Namajunas. She gets the win over last-minute replacement Tracy Cortez. She was supposed to fight Macy Barber, who had a medical issue. So Tracy Cortez jumps in. She was game as heck, even got her eyelash punched off early in the fight and kept fighting through the adversity. But Rose just looked good. She looked well-rounded. She scored some takedowns. She looked great on the feet. How'd you like the performance?
Look, Rose, a later point in her career now, as I said, former champ trying to win another title at another weight. She's very smooth. It was not a barn burner. Tracy Cortez was on an 11-fight win streak. And Rose, I thought she won the fight 4-1. My scoring, I had it 4 rounds to 1. She's very smooth with her striking. Very quick, very good on the mat, very well-rounded, but really silky smooth with her movement. I think there was too much posing going on in some of the rounds where there wasn't enough movement of the hands. I'm for the sweet science, so I'm not ever saying to move your hands for the sake of moving your hands. You got to move them at the right time so you're not leaving yourself vulnerable. I think I understand that part of it that goes with it. But there are times where you could be moving your hands a little bit more and still be responsible and still be within the realm of practicing the sweet science the proper way. And I don't think I think there were times where both of them did not move their hands enough, especially Cortez, who was behind in the fight, where I thought she was waiting in front too much. I know that Rose was keeping her off balance with her nice footwork, and it was giving her angles, going in and out, smoothly gliding around the ring. I appreciate that. But I thought Cortez, you have to have some answer. You have to have a plan B. And if she can't find it with some of the bigger shots, then start to use the jab to the chest area just to stabilize the person who's moving on you on the out. Just to stable. Take some of their movement away. Make it a little more difficult. Break up their rhythm a little bit. I didn't see any of that. I saw too much waiting. And then, of course, both of them tried to change the tempo with takedowns at the proper times. I think that wound up happening in the third round. But for most of it was striking. Rose scored a knockdown with a really nice left hook in the first round. She was picking spots for her jab. She was landing some nice, clean, straight right hands. I liked the technique. I liked the succinctness in her punches. Again, the smoothness in her punches. And in her movement, where she's, just very effortlessly. And I catch myself with that word because there could have been a more effort for offense maybe with that. Again, could have put in a few more jabs, while she was smoothly giving angles and smoothly going in and out, and smoothly getting off with a jab. There could have been spots where it could have been a little bit more of those jabs. But at the end of the day, she controlled the rhythm of the fight. She controlled the tempo of the fight. She definitely controlled ring generalship. If you wanted somebody to define for you what they mean when they talk about scoring criterion, part of it being ring generalship, well, what Rose was doing would probably define that to a certain extent. Just control geography, just keeping the other one off balance, putting yourself where you're always at an advantage, being the general, ring generalship, being in charge in that sort of way. So at the end of the day, our first round definitely goes to Rose. She scores that knockdown. Rose was very patient. I think there was two reasons for both of them not moving their hands more. One was Rose didn't want to make a mistake. She was being very very patient and trying to make it to fight a perfect fight, a mistake-free fight. And the reason you saw less offense than you wanted to see with Cortez, she was tentative after being dropped. After being dropped, after fighting a round or two where she couldn't really set her feet, she couldn't really feel comfortable in throwing anything where she had hope of landing it, she got tentative. And so I think that kind of stayed with Cortez until the end of the fight, which I thought she won the last round, but it was a little bit too little too late at that point.
That's right.
I thought Rose again. Second round, Cortez shot in to take Rose to the mat. Rose got back up. I thought that Cortez was doing what she had to do to try to change the tempo and the flow of the fight at that point. Second round was a close round, I felt, where I thought it was an edge to Rose. Third round, Cortez came out aggressive. She needed to. She did what she had to. Rose got a takedown, got a full mount, controlling Cortez on the mat. Rose was in charge on the mat, good position for her, and she was smart. She kept it there, kept control for most of the round. With about 40 seconds left, I guess, or so, they stood up. But it was, at that point, the round was hers. She was up 3-0. Fourth round, Rose was controlling the outside. Same thing, jabbing legs. That was the winning formula for her. Not a lot of punching, as I said. More posing than we would have liked. And then it was desperation time, in the fifth round. Of course, when you're ahead the way Rose was ahead, she's got the benefit of being able to just pot shot. She doesn't have to be that busy at that point, where she could just pot shot, play it safe, play it smart, take advantage of any kind of over-aggressive behavior by your opponent who's got to get a little reckless or has to take chances now. So Rose played it smart. Fifth round, as I said, Cortez needed a finish. And she applied pressure, but Rose's movement, kept her off balance, kept her from getting off the way she wanted to. And the clock ticked down, and although I gave the round to Cortez, it didn't matter. It was a night for Rose, and now she's got 2 wins in a row, and she's got a chance to make a move towards one more title.
Yep. Be interesting to see what happens there. All right, let's get into a quick preview. Upcoming boxing match, Jake Paul and Mike Perry, the bare knuckle champ. Last minute not last minute, but a replacement for Mike Tyson, who was supposed to fight Jake Paul. They get Mike Perry coming in from bare knuckles, obviously formerly of the UFC, and fighting this weekend in Dallas. What are you looking for in this one?
Listen, Perry is an animal. and I'm saying that in an admiring way. He's a savage. Guy is as tough as they come. The problem with him is that he just walks in. He doesn't give a damn. At least he acts that way. I mean, as Mickey Duff would say, one of the great boxing guys and one of the guys that was very close to me, he gets insulted if you miss him, and he takes everything. He's got a chin of granite, but every chin of granite starts to chip after a certain amount of punishment. I don't know if it's time to chip yet for Perry, but I know that he will come in straight in, in a predictable fashion, trying to get to Paul. I know he will take whatever he has to take to try to get there. That's the question. Will he be able to take what will be whatever that barrage is? Will he be able to take it from a bigger guy? Because Paul's the guy who calls the shots, like Canelo. He calls the shots. He's the guy bringing the money. So we can't forget that. He's bringing the money. He earned that spot. He built up this business. He built up this opportunity that he's got now in the boxing world, where he's promoting other fighters. He's promoting himself. He built it up. He had a vision. He went out there and he built it. And he's reaping the benefits of it. Yeah, he picks his spots. We get all that. But as long as people pay, he's allowed to do that. And he has respected the sport enough, I believe, of boxing to go and train the last 4 years, whatever it's been, 3-4 years, where he is still a work in progress. He is respecting the sport, trying to learn the sport. At the end of the day, his punches are straighter than Perry's. Ken, you could fill in the rest for me, right?
Straight beats round.
There it is. That's what I think of this fight. Perry will be predictable. He will be Perry, tough hombre. He will be coming straight in, but he'll be coming in without head movement. He'll be coming in with wide punches, and it will give Paul, the naturally bigger guy, it will give Paul a chance to land a straight right hand. And he does throw a good straight right hand, a good, hard, straight right hand. And he knocked out Woodley. I know Woodley wasn't known as, he's not a pure striker. I know he was an older, retired UFC champion, but Woodley was a fighter. Woodley was good. He was a champion. He was beyond that, obviously, best part of his career, the prime of his career, but there was still an element of danger, and he was a smaller guy than Paul. But still, he went in there, and in the rematch, Paul was able to catch him with the right hand and stop him. I believe that Paul will be able to use the jab to try to keep Perry out at a distance where he can set up the right hand, keep Perry from penetrating the range, which is the only way Perry can win, to get in close to Paul. Paul can win on the outside. Paul's got 2 chances, 2 opportunities, 2 options. Box him, use his legs, use the jab, pot shot behind the jab in spots with the right hand, and continue to keep Perry off balance, or really set himself. Or he could do a mix of both, really. I'd probably do a mix of both. But set himself, and when Perry comes in, set himself to catch him before Perry gets to the range he needs to get to catch Paul. Catch him with a right hand in between one of those fat left hooks. If he can do that, and he can do it clean enough, time it right, he's got a chance to stop Perry. I mean, I guess the money would probably be on it to go the distance because of Perry's toughness, because he is that tough. He does have that good a chin. But I would give Paul a chance with a straight right hand to be able to catch Perry. Do we have opportunities of wager?
We don't have an over-under on this one yet, but we do have a line from our friends at MyBookie. You can check them out at mybookie.ag, and you can use the promo code ATLAS for a 50% credit on your first deposit if you want to wager on the fight. We got Jake Paul. Only a line available right now is Jake Paul by money line -360. Mike Perry gets you back 250. -360 on Jake Paul, plus 250 on Mike Perry.
All right, well, I'm going to pick Jake Paul. I'm going to lay the money. And even though I love Perry, I love the way he behaves like a fighter. But but I'm gonna pick Jake Paul. I'm gonna take him. And the only other question, I know there's no under over, but like I asked you last week, which we got a good play, I thought it was a good opportunity that you brought up to me, to be honest, where you said, hey, Teddy, if you don't want to lay the 2,000 or whatever the hell it was to take Ennis, you could take Ennis at minus 500 for knockout. And I said, give me that. I'll take it. Give me that. I know a good deal when I see one. I think I do. Give me that. So is there any such options here where you could take Paul by knockout?
They don't have They don't have any prop lines up yet, unfortunately, on my bookie. I'm checking all the other sites, but I don't see anything else where they have the over/under listed yet.
Well, I just take Paul then. I just take him in the way that you just laid it out, straight up. I would take Paul to win.
There you have it. That'll be a good one, though, and that'll be a fun one to break down next week. Like you said, it wasn't the biggest barn burner of a weekend in combat sports, but we covered the fights that were out there. We previewed the fight coming up. You got anything else, Teddy, before we say goodbye?
Yeah, one other thing. I'm just on the way out the door, always trying to give you guys a door prize, right? You come here, okay, here's a little door prize on your way out. Hopefully you look at it that way and you appreciate it that way. But I just realized that also on the docket of fights this coming weekend on the 20th, Saturday night, I don't know if it's from Japan, but, of course we have the great Inoue, the great fighter from Japan, the great champion who, pound for pound, I got him right up there with Terence Crawford. Pound for pound, up there. Also Usyk, all those guys, Tank Davis, all of those guys in that same sort of stratosphere. But here's a guy that is from Japan. He's 27-0, 20 knockouts. He's a southpaw. His name is Junto Nakatani.
July 20th on ESPN Plus from Tokyo.
Yeah, he's fighting Vincent Astrolobio, experienced guy, veteran guy, good puncher. The reason I mention this fight, there are people that are starting to put Junto Nakatani on their pound-for-pound list. There are. He's not on mine yet. He's on the radar, but he's not on that list of mine. I take it very serious, and I try to do the best job I can do with it when I put it out there for ESPN, which they asked me to, put out my pound for pound top 10 guys. So, but he is somebody that I thought I should mention since people are starting to talk about his name a little bit. He's a tall guy, obviously bantamweight. He's got good size, good height. Not crazy tall, but he's got good height. He's got long arms. He's a wiry guy against power. He's a southpaw. I was talking about guys knowing how to best use their physical assets. Like if you're tall, knowing that your geography, you have to control the outside geography. He's a guy that is tall, long. He knows how to fight tall. We've seen a lot of guys that, Fontoura was a guy, he's won his title finally, but he got knocked out. Real tall guy, junior middleweight, 6'7", crazy, freakish tall. But he got knocked out because he's fighting in close, where guys are better suited in close. And then, of course, he pulled off the big upset against Tim Tszyu, but the cut was a big part of that fight. It changed the course of that fight, but still, showed a lot of guts. He won that title. He won that fight. Congratulations to him. But he didn't know how to fight tall. In the Tszyu fight, he showed an improvement in that area. This guy, Junto Nakatani, knows how to fight tall. And so far, so good. And for Vincent Astrolobio to have a shot against him, he's going to have to get in close. If he can't get in close, it's over. He's not winning. He is not winning on the outside because, as I said, Junto Nakatani, long arms, knows how to use them, knows how to, keep you at the end of his jab and then set up the power punch with the left hand. He is an impressive looking guy. So I figured I'd mention him as on the way out for anybody out there that you didn't know he was fighting, or you did know he was fighting, you might want to, put a little note to yourself that Saturday night you might want to take a peek at him.
Yep, and there you have it. Well, Teddy, thanks for doing this. Great breakdown as always, and we'll look forward to speaking with all the fans next week. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe to the episode. It helps us immensely. And with that, everyone have a healthy, safe week, and we'll see you back here next week, same place. Boom.